Uh, so I was trying to figure out what I wanted to talk about today, because I don't like just rambling on about different things. And so I think today it will be just, I guess at the highest level, it would be how to build health logic. And I'm just assuming everybody understands the meaning of logic. To me, it's kind of like common sense, but not really. Because the difference between logic and common sense is some things you just have to learn, and then when you learn them, and no, it's like, objective or factual, as you age and learn more things or new things, you can basically the education itself transforms into common sense in a way. Like, I think that's how I would describe logic and how I'm applying it, right? Like, until like, we don't even know what's healthy food, really. I mean, we think we do, and there's a lot of ideas out there. But let's assume we know what healthy food is. If someone says they want to be healthy and they are eating McDonald's every day, unless you know what healthy food is, you wouldn't know if they're healthy or not. You wouldn't it wouldn't be common sense because you don't know what healthy food is. But when you learn what healthy food is, and somebody says they want to be healthy and want to eat McDonald's every day, that person must not know what healthy food is, or they're not. You will conclude. Well, you'll always conclude they're not actually being healthy, even though they're saying they want to be healthy. And so I think the point about what I'm saying here is, when it comes to health and our current understanding, these things have already proven to shift, even in just the last probably 50 years, and it's in a very significant way too. For example, at least I grew up, I'm a millennial, with the idea that milk does the body good. The milk commercials, talking like not raw milk, but pasteurized milk, and the food pyramid. So bread, or ultimately, I guess, gluten, being the top food to eat. It's part of your diet, normal diet. And now we've learned that basically those things, maybe it's not the worst thing you could do, but it's definitely not the healthiest. I don't know if they still even teach that stuff. But I guess the point is how that applies to health logic. Because if something is understood to be healthy, 20 years ago, and now it's understood to not be the case, like pasteurized milk, then you need to know the latest thing people are saying. But unfortunately, this doesn't even always work. Otherwise, we'd be right every time we say something, at least at the level of it being like a government-backed thing, like, food pyramid was. So the point is, health logic not only changes based on science over time in a significant way, and I can give many examples, and I'm sure if you are following what I'm saying, you can think of many yourself. It's just like the carnivore diet. Unless you believe these people are psychos or crazy or lying, it's always been said red meat is bad in high consumption. I think it's still thought to be the case, and it leads to high cholesterol and stuff. Apparently the brain is made 100% of cholesterol, and then margarine versus butter. Like, these things are still debated, and not widely understood, for at least what is the healthiest. If you were to identify in every category or way, what is the healthiest way of living? No one can answer that. It's almost like a religion, I guess, in almost every way. So, like, it really, to me, matters. Unless standard approaches work, for standard type issues, common type symptoms, whatever. Not many people are willing to even accept they can think through science better than science. Like, I think they see challenging the mainstream as impractical, like, as for an individual. We're not Albert Einsteins, and no one assumes that you're that genius and you have discovered something no one else has. It's, to almost everyone, it's crazy. But anyway, so really this only, I guess, knowing how to know if you're right about something, or when you're seeking truth when it comes to health science. I kind of just call it health science, and it's probably not even a broad enough term, because there's health science within many paths of medicine. And one of those paths of medicine, it could be homeopath, there's sugar pills, Chinese medicine, acupuncture, whatever. They all are pretty rigid in their methods, at least when you kind of look at it from those type of starting points. Like, a starting point would be Western medicine. There's different specialists depending on symptoms. That entire approach is very isolated. You have a pelvic issue, you see urologist. You have pain, you see pain management. Whatever. So what I've kind of discovered is statistics matter. Not a lot of people, I worry less on how to calculate statistics and more about applying overall concepts. It's kind of like, once you learn addition and subtraction, you can do mental math and apply math in a way that kind of like makes you less dependent, more independent. The same thing applies to kind of learning about a bell-shaped curve. And that's kind of how I talk about statistics. Like, never would analyze anything, that ultimately, you could think about a bell-shaped curve to get any exact number on anything. But yeah, so when you think about statistics, and also, like I mentioned, there's probably a little bit of truth in everything. Because I just learned from my own experience that you can't be anti anything. Even if you get poisoned by pharmaceuticals, or if you're just a 100% anti-vaxxer, like, there could come a time and place. There is just no way around, the advantages a pharmaceutical could have, unless you're just willing to accept, that you're trying something out of spite and you're wrong, and the universe will tell you, and you might not believe it. That happens too. But the point is, there's kind of like truth in everything. So you can't be anti anything. And this is how you kind of develop health logic. Because unfortunately, when it comes to health issues, depending on whatever it is, it's on you whether you accept living with that or not, solving it, or believing yourself whether someone else can solve it with their method for you. Because like I said even before, statistically speaking, the majority are not going to question the system, and that system is the pharmaceutical industry. If you get sick, you go to a doctor. Not if you get sick, you go to a Chinese medicine guy and do acupuncture. That's two different types of thinking. And everything I say about health logic would never apply to the person who puts all their trust into a doctor. They just have to learn themselves. If and when science fails them. And I just know for a fact, because of my personal experience, and no one can prove, because if they could, the things they could prove would change. But science fails people. I don't know to what degree. Maybe science fails more people who are sick than it helps even. No one knows. And the numbers that are out there, I know for a fact, we don't track how successful we are. I've gone to the doctor, I don't know, over 1,000 times. None of those doctors know how I am today. So, they didn't help me. Maybe they did, and they think they did, and they report it that way. If I were to get on any list like that where they're trying to check and see, hold themselves accountable, which is my point. That doesn't exist. So, someone who everything works for and is content with their health, they're going to be just blind. They're like living the Matrix. Hearing even this type of stuff, as long as they're still content, they'd either think they just simply wouldn't want to hear it. And if you try to force it on them, even if it's true, they'd probably most likely get angry or think that you think you know more than a doctor and you're not a doctor or whatever. that sort of thought process is always thrown back at you. Oh, you don't have a government certification to be an expert in whatever you're trying to say. You got to be a scientist to know climate change is real or not, or whatever. So it's just a common thought pattern. Okay, I think I feel like I've gotten nowhere in terms of how to develop stronger health logic. And kind of like my secondary point. I learned that when you start going through something interesting that requires, it's not as easy as just like, here's the rule or whatever, and everyone accept that. You start off with the ultimate point and then work towards explaining. But anyway, point is, males and females shouldn't have it, shouldn't be really any different in terms of issues they have going on in their pelvic area. Like, I guess the only way that could make sense is just because the difference of vagina and penis. Vaginas can get UTIs easier, and somehow if females take antibiotics, it's way more common they get candida in their private. But I don't know, men also get UTIs from, out of nowhere, not from like sex or whatever. So it definitely can happen, it's just not as common. So even though it's not as common, when it does happen for men, it's no different. But because there's not these tests or whatever, like a female can take an antibiotic and develop what they think, and even a doctor would say, is a yeast infection. Do a test and show nothing. I've actually seen that happen a lot. But then a doctor, will 100% almost every time give them pharmaceutical fungal treatment, whether a cream or even a pill. Now, for a male, which in my opinion shouldn't be any different, they take a antibiotic and develop an issue in their pelvic area, because this happened to me. A doctor will never assume it is a fungal issue, and even they'd still do the same tests. Maybe they think their tests couldn't even show it, because for females, when they test, they can do like an actual swab, but for men, they can't really get into different, like into the prostate and stuff like that to make it kind of the same. So I guess that's their logic. But my logic is, why would it be different just because they're female? The only thing is, like, maybe it's just harder for an infection or whatever to get to that area, like a male's pelvic area, for whatever reasons. But if it were to happen, or a male to have a reaction, like in the case of antibiotic, why do y'all just rule that as not even being possible when it happens to females? Like, is it just because of how hard? Maybe it is because of, one being a vagina and a penis. Or is it because, maybe, they're not really understanding how the tests even work, and there's just no test to get in there for a man to know? Even though I don't think there's just simply a good test to know, But also for men, there's just like no swabbing your prostate unless you do a biopsy. So to me, it seems like, why do I think I have a better understanding of these kind of things, and and the fact that y'all think men and women can, like, if it's an infectious cause, just be susceptible to different infections, and that's simply because one's men and one a female. That, like, I've never seen nature work this way. Like, bacteria knows, oh, you're a female, okay, I can fuck with you and be an infection now. Like, for it to work the way they think, that's how it would work, but that just doesn't make sense. And like, I'm always the idiot because I'm not an expert and I'm not a doctor. But it's like, well, I don't know. Like, I've never seen any animal kind of do anything different because something is a man or a female, unless it's their own species and they're trying to, like, breed. Because, like, gayness is, I don't think, a real thing for animals. Gay people like to think it is. But I've never seen a gay male cat, So if they're going to, behave any different, it's within their species, because that's a male cat trying to impregnate a female. They're not just going to jump on top of a male the same way and think it can impregnate him. So, okay, I get that's a completely, different type of context, but why? If you take an antibiotic, or a female takes an antibiotic, wipes out their gut, that's how they get the candida, the good bacteria. Why would that? So they have it in them. Do female have different types of bacteria and fungus than men? No, I don't think so. So then they would have the same fungus. So men and women both have candida in it. So if a female wipes out their gut with an antibiotic, the doctor will agree that, yeah, for sure, candida would explain it. We don't always need to test it. I'll prescribe you fungal treatment, like I said. But then for a male, that's just like, what? You're crazy. You took an antibiotic and got pelvic pain and you want fungal treatment? Like, I guess maybe there's no risk, but, like, it's definitely not going to work, idiot. Like, that is exactly what they'll think every time. And I don't understand why, because for them to think that way, it would have to work. Bacteria would just simply work different because someone's a man or someone's a female. I don't think they're gonna, that's not gonna determine anything for what they do. If a man takes an antibiotic, wipes all the good bacteria out, the yeast aren't gonna be like, oh, I live in a man's body, I can't, I gotta behave and just stay, not being an infection or whatever. So, like, with all, like, if that all makes sense, then I don't understand why there are basically two communities that have the same issue. Ultimately, it's pelvic pain. And what I learned as a man is, if something works for someone else and you're like, where do you have pain? And then, oh, I don't have pain there. If that worked for you, like, it doesn't apply to me because my pain's not there. Like, a lot of people actually think this way. Maybe this is all part of health logic and how to strengthen it. I have learned this does not matter. And me, myself, I've actually have pain in probably, like, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 different areas of my pelvis. Sometimes I think it's the same area, but then it's like probably a different nerve end or something. I don't know. So then, like, I guess that matters because, like, if a woman's like, well, I have pain in, like, you know, in my vagina. You don't have a vagina. Like, okay, that won't apply. But also, it doesn't matter where the pain is for men if it was an infectious cause. So, like, to me, a female that has pelvic pain that can't be found on a test and, you know, responds in any way to gut changes in a male is no different, yet almost no one thinks it's the same thing going on. And I mean, if you want to prove it yourself, and you can search in the Facebook embedded UTI. This last I checked, it was like a group of 25,000 females that think they have a long-term UTI and have to be on long-term antibiotics. And I don't know, it seems like about 98% of people on long-term antibiotics are hoping one day, you know, they turn a corner and they don't. Maybe there's some improvement or changes, but it doesn't seem to be a solution for remission. And then, you know, if you agree and think men or male and female pain and pelvis are the same, then you would know that an embedded UTI for female is equal to chronic prostatitis or chronic pelvic pain for men, which is a much smaller group, maybe a fourth of the size. But almost none of the men, because they have no tests, no positive tests, because 94% of those cases are non-bacterial, they say, try antibiotics, especially long term. They'd actually think, you know, that's super risky and dangerous. And it's like, what is going on here? But then the other strange thing I've noticed is, you know, because I think it's Candida and parasites, those groups in alternative type, you know, treatments and stuff, or stuff that is like whatever, primarily exist of only females. And, you know, most of them, it's not for pelvic issues. I think females are just more in tune with their health. So it's like, not only do females specifically having chronic pelvic pain seem to trust pharmaceuticals and doctors more, because almost all of them are on long-term antibiotics and continue to go back to doctors, you know, and repeat the same thing over and over and expect a different result. But also, way more of them, it's way more common for the female to also not just like trust in government, but try to take health in their control, like through alternative, like Candida protocol or whatever. But, you know, men just kind of accept and live with it. They don't, you know, go on long-term antibiotics, or if they do, it's super rare. And they also don't think they can cure this on their own or think it's an infection because the tests say it's not. I think that's just a crazy thing, but that's my thought for today.